536 CE, the darkest year in human history, when the sun disappeared. Imagine waking up one morning to find the sun has disappeared, not just for a day, but for 18 months. The temperature plummets, crops wither and die. Famine spreads across continents. Civilizations collapse. This isn't the plot of a disaster movie. This is what actually happened in the year 536 CE, now considered by many scientists and historians to be the worst year to be alive in human history. Welcome to our exploration of humanity's darkest year. I'm going to take you on a journey back, nearly 2,500 years, to a global catastrophe that changed the course of history, yet remains largely unknown to most people today. The Byzantine historian Procopius wrote, "The sun gave forth its light without brightness like the moon during this whole year." Another writer, in Italy, described it as a most terrible drought. The light of the sun was dim. In Ireland, chroniclers recorded a failure of bread for this same period. What these ancient writers were describing was the aftermath of a massive volcanic eruption that sent a vast cloud of ash into the atmosphere, blocking the sun's rays and plunging much of the world into a volcanic winter. Temperatures in the summer of 536 dropped by as much as 2.5 degrees Celsius, or 4.5 degrees Fahrenheit, a devastating blow in an era before modern heating, transportation, or food preservation. But what exactly happened? For centuries, the true cause remained a mystery. Scientists now believe the culprit was a massive volcanic eruption in Iceland or possibly North America. In 2018, researchers analyzing ice cores from Swiss glaciers found microscopic particles of volcanic glass that originated from an Icelandic volcano. These particles were trapped in ice that formed during the spring of 536, providing crucial evidence of timing and scale. The eruption wasn't just any volcanic event. It was catastrophic, ejecting millions of tons of ash and sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere. These particles reflected solar radiation back into space, causing the mysterious dim sun described in historical accounts. To make matters worse, this wasn't the only eruption. Additional volcanic events occurred in 540 and 547, extending the period of climate disruption for nearly a decade. The immediate effects were devastating. With the sun obscured for 18 months, temperatures plummeted across the Northern Hemisphere. Summer frosts killed crops and triggered widespread famine. Tree ring studies show that 536 began the coldest decade in at least 2,300 years. In Scandinavia, summer temperatures dropped by up to 7 degrees Celsius. Now let's consider the human impact of this climate disaster. The Byzantine Empire under Justinian I was reaching the height of its power, having just reconquered much of the Western Roman Empire's former territories. But the prolonged famine and economic disruption severely weakened Byzantium's military and economic resources. In China, unusual snow and frost destroyed crops, leading to widespread famine. Chinese historical records note that the Tang dynasty faced snow in August, killing crops across the country. This climate disaster contributed to political instability that would ultimately lead to the collapse of the Northern and Southern dynasties period. Parts of Mesoamerica experienced drought conditions that may have accelerated the decline of Teotihuacan, one of the largest cities in the pre-Columbian Americas. In Peru, the Mochi civilization faced extreme weather that disrupted their agricultural systems and religious practices tied to predictable weather patterns. As if a global volcanic winter wasn't enough, the weakened population soon faced another catastrophe. Just a few years later, in 541, the plague of Justinian broke out. This early version of the bubonic plague killed between 15 and 50 million people, up to half the world's population at that time. Research suggests that the climate disruption played a key role in the emergence and spread of the plague by affecting rodent populations and human migration patterns. The combination of climate disaster and pandemic created what scientists call a late antique Little Ice Age, a period of cooling and societal change that lasted from approximately 536 to 660 CE. This era coincides with what we now know as the beginning of the Dark Ages in Europe, a period of economic, intellectual, and cultural decline. Archaeological evidence offers a window into this grim period. Excavations across Europe show abandoned villages, decreased construction activity, and evidence of population decline. Coin production plummeted, indicating a major economic downturn. In Scandinavia, researchers have found evidence that up to 75% of villages were abandoned. The climatic disaster reshaped global power structures. The weakened Byzantine Empire never fully recovered, leaving it vulnerable to the rise of Islam in the following century. The Persian Sassanid Empire, also devastated by famine and plague, was similarly weakened. In Britain, the post-Roman society faced agricultural collapse that may have accelerated Anglo-Saxon conquest. But humans are remarkably resilient. While many societies collapsed, others adapted. The nomadic Avars of Central Asia, less dependent on agriculture, gained power and expanded into weakened settled territories. In Arabia, tribal societies adapted to harsh conditions were positioned to unite under the banner of Islam just a century later. The events of 536 and the decade that followed show the profound vulnerability of human civilization to climate disruption. But they also reveal our capacity for adaptation and renewal. By the late 600s, new social and political structures had emerged across Eurasia, setting the stage for the medieval world. What makes this story particularly relevant today is what it tells us about climate vulnerability. Our modern civilization depends on predictable, growing seasons and stable weather patterns. While we have technologies our ancestors couldn't dream of, we also have billions more people to feed and complex global systems that could be disrupted by climate shocks. The year 536 reminds us that catastrophic climate events have occurred naturally throughout history. It should make us reflect on our own preparations for potential disruptions in our food systems and global supply chains, whether from volcanic eruptions, pandemics, or other unforeseen disasters. What lessons can we learn from history's darkest year? Perhaps the most important is the value of resilience in our food systems, our communities, and our ability to adapt to changing conditions. The societies that survived the mid-6th century catastrophe were those that could adapt quickly and develop new ways of life in the face of unprecedented challenges. As we face our own uncertain climate future, the forgotten story of 536 CE offers both a warning and a testament to human resilience. The sun dimmed, temperatures plummeted, and civilizations faltered. Yet humanity endured, adapted, and eventually flourished once again. Thank you for joining me on this journey through one of history's least known but most impactful events. If you found this exploration of the past valuable, please like, subscribe, and share this video. And let me know in the comments. What aspects of our modern world do you think are most vulnerable to climate disruption?